Good morning, Louis. Is this
Morning.
Santiago? Good morning, board members. I apologize.
Santiago, we don't have a Santiago today.
Attorney Walcott, no, I'm looking for Sanchez.
Oh, sure.
Yes, I apologize. I'm still organizing myself here. Good morning. But I'm
It must be the family.
Attorney Walcott, your case is proceeding at 10:30.
Thank you, Madam Commissioner. I'll log back in at that point.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, but Attorney Gary's here.
Yes. What do you have for me?
Morning.
So the attorney's here. You see Chywon on anything? See the names over here? The names on that are the ones that are signed in. Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Wright.
Good morning.
My name is Parole Officer Logan. Today is Thursday, January 30th, 2025, and this is a Public Act 1584 hearing of the Connecticut Board of Pardons and Paroles. Mr. Wright, for the record, the state of Connecticut passed and made effective October 1st, 2015, Public Act 1584, an act concerning lengthy sentences for crimes committed by a child or youth and the sentencing of a child or youth convicted of certain felony offenses. You fall under this act. And basically, this means that you were under the age of 18 and that the board shall give great weight to the diminished culpabilities of juveniles as compared to adults, the hallmark features of youth, and any subsequent growth and maturity that you've displayed while we are reviewing you for suitability today. The following board members are present this morning and by stating their names on the record, certify they have reviewed all statutorily required documents in preparation of this hearing.
Good morning, sir. I'm Jeffrey Zachnini.
Good morning, Robert Sazowskis.
Deborah Smith Palmieri. Also in attendance is a public defender. Can you please state your name, juris number, and business address? Is the attorney here?
Very simple turn. Huh.
Not sure.
Okay.
He's not in Waterbury?
No, it says that he was supposed to be attending from the facility. Sir, who are you?
Louis Montagna, I'm the social worker for the Public Defender's Office, Hartford, Connecticut, 101 Lafayette Street.
You. Mr. Wright, did your attorney say he was going to be present?
Yes, but I'm not sure where he is at the moment.
Check, but we can check here. They are turned on in the viewing room.
Give me one moment.
They might not go continue with him not here. First of all, could be, I don't know. They asked you.
And Frank is trying to contact. Okay. She thought he was supposed to go to Brooklyn. So, and that's what I got. Alert.
All right, we're going to take a brief recess to see if we can get in contact with your attorney, okay?
Okay.
I wonder if I should go out to the car and try to call him. I gotta think somebody from my office is watching and trying to reach him.
Stupid if he didn't.
Hi, Mr. Wright, we're unable to reach your attorney directly. Someone did contact his office and they believe he's on the way. Are you willing to proceed without him? I guess is the question. Or do you want to wait for him? Oh, hang on, you're muted.
Mr. Wright, can you call in the CO, please? He's gonna need to unmute. Thank you.
Can you hear us now?
Yes.
Yes.
I got it, guys. Thank you. They didn't hear you.
Okay.
I would like to proceed, please.
Okay. Go ahead. And he can join you when he gets there if he does.
Okay, thank
Okay,
you.
thank you.
I'm just gonna start over. Is it one to start over?
That's fine, sure.
Good morning, Mr. Wright.
Good morning.
My name is Parole Officer Logan. Today is Thursday, January 30th, 2025, and this is a public 1584 hearing of the Connecticut Board of Pardons and Paroles. Mr. Wright, for the record, the state of Connecticut passed and made effective October 1st, 2025, Public Act 1584, an act concerning lengthy sentences for crimes committed by a child or youth, and the sentencing of a child or youth convicted of certain felony offenses. You fall under this act, and basically this means that you were under the age of 18 and that the board shall give great weight to the diminished culpabilities of juveniles as compared to adults, the hallmark features of youth, and any subsequent growth and maturity that you displayed while we are reviewing you for suitability today. The following board members are present this morning and by stating their names on the record, certify they have reviewed all statutorily required documents in preparation of this hearing.
Good morning, sir. I'm Jennifer Zaccanini.
Good morning, Robert Sazowskis.
Deborah Smith Palmieri.
And Mr. Wright, as we've discussed, your attorney is not present and you said you are willing to proceed, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Also in attendance is the state's attorney. Please state your name, juris number, and business address.
Good morning, members of the board. Assistant State's Attorney Joy Gary, juris number 439493, and Waterbury State's Attorney's Office, 400 Grand Street, Waterbury, 06702.
Thank you. All others present this morning in regard to this hearing, please state your name for the record.
Louis Montagna, the social worker for the Public Defender's Office, 101 Lafayette Street, Hartford, Connecticut.
Thanks so much. Also present is the victim service advocate, Hamlet Williams. Mr. Wright, please state your name and inmate number for the record.
Chywon Wright, 364261.
This is a public hearing in accordance with Chapter 14, Freedom of Information Act, Connecticut General Statute 1200, which applies to this procedure. Mr. Wright, if you have any questions concerning the above, please bring your questions to the attention of the panel at this time.
I have no questions.
Again, this is a public hearing. Do you have any questions, and are you willing to proceed at this time?
Yes, I am. I'm willing to proceed.
This 1584 hearing is being conducted in consideration of the parole application for Chywon Wright, 364261, who is serving a sentence of 20 years followed by 10 years special parole for 2 counts of aggravated sexual assault first, conspiracy to commit aggravated sexual assault first, as well as an unconditional discharge for assault third. He is to remain on the sex offender registry for life. There is victim input in this case. There is an offender accountability plan for the offender. It has been reviewed and shows he has completed alternatives to violence basic, anger management, tier 2, the track 1 sex offender program, domestic violence, voices, people empowering people, the SRG program, and chronic discipline. Utilizing the statewide collaborative offender risk evaluation system, the offender's overall score on the RT falls within the low range of risk for recidivism. Mr. Wright, this is your opportunity to express to the board why you believe you should be granted parole. You may begin.
Thank you. Board members, good morning. I would like to thank you for the opportunity to be heard for the second time and to make amends for my behavior before the panel. Since my last appearance, I had a lot of time to reflect on my prior decisions and the harm they caused. I sincerely apologize to the victim and can assure you that I have taken advantage of every opportunity awarded to me to teach me coping skills for better decision making. I can honestly say my previous actions were unacceptable and indecent, as I was easily influenced by negative peers and my environment, which I admit made me make very poor choices on the night of my offense, including not taking responsibility as sentencing for the crime I was convicted of. Holding myself accountable during my institutional programs, I started peeling back layers of myself to reflect who I was as a person and decided I no longer wanted to be the version of my old self. Using a vision board to grow as a person, I had time to start a journal to chart my personal development with the information I studied with positive peers and the materials the programs DOC had to offer. Specifically, I learned how to put myself in other people's shoes and look at things from a different point of view. I'm fully aware of my prior mistakes, but today, empathy is my biggest tool to not reoffend, and I'm furthering how to take the time to think before I react so I'll never make a harmful decision like I did prior to my incarceration. On May 11th, 2020, I began Voices from my cell during COVID and completed the program on June 29th due to the pandemic. Recently, I started Voices while I was housed at Carl Robinson, and unfortunately, I received a ticket and was transferred to a different facility. When I got to Brooklyn, CI, I asked to participate in the program right away, but I had to wait for a specific date to restart Voices and complete the program. As of the past few years, I have focused on relearning about how to take responsibility for the humiliation and pain I put the victim through and completed all of my assignments to graduate in the group. Prior to completing the track 1 phase, I tried to rationalize my behavior and convince myself that I had the right to act without consideration of others. I used distorted thinking to justify my actions and avoided confronting my negative consequences that I didn't realize I was denying the harm I caused the victim during the instant offense. In my sex offender program, I learned that it is really easy to make someone feel uneasy, and I learned that if I was aware of this, I would have never made the decisions that I will forever regret. There are no words that I could say that can change the trauma I inflicted on the victim, but after reflecting on my inappropriate behavior in group, I finally became aware that the patterns of feeling impulsive, entitled, and hypersexual were the key factors in my behavior to sexually offend. During one of my assignments in track 1, I was able to identify my past risk factors and challenge myself by pointing out specific factors that contributed to my lack of self-control. During a different assignment, I also had a chance to explore my emotional needs and came to realize why I took advantage of the victim by twisting the meaning of instant gratification to sexually gratify myself. Between the track 1 SO group and the Voices program, I learned to take full responsibility for my behavior, and after enrolling in the program, People Empowering People, I was able to learn how to come to terms with understanding the nature of my crime and the guilt and shame of what I did. Through my ongoing process of recovery, People Empowering People really helped me to understand that taking responsibility for my actions will help me be remorseful and empathetic towards others. Growing up without a male role model, it not only harbored cravings of a male companionship, but it also restricted me from imitating healthy behaviors towards women that I wanted to learn about toxic relationships and confront the immature behavior I thought was normal. The domestic violence program wasn't on my OAP, but I volunteered to participate in the group, and the first thing I learned about was victimization. I also learned how hurt people, which is something today I find as an excuse for poor behavior. Changing my negative mentors with positive mentors, I will continue to explore relationship advice by continuing with therapy in the community and attending transitional case management programs. My discharge plan will consist of short-term goals and long-term goals. My first short-term goal is to enroll in a halfway house through parole for the support I would need to reintegrate into society with positive support through the staff and my peers. It will help me slowly adjust to life in the outside world. My next short-term goal is to continue with sex offender treatment through parole. I will also have therapy and counseling through my pastor. My pastor, T.C. Brantley, is from Restoration Springs at 1575 Thomaston Avenue in Waterbury. I will attend therapy once a week and weekly services. I will also attend AA and NA meetings in my local community. I have several leads for employment. The first is to work as a dispatcher for a trucking company, which I can work from my residence. This company is located in New Haven. Another job opportunity will be a cleaning company. This company is called Showbiz Cleaning, which is a commercial and residential cleaning company. This employment prospect is at a boatyard in Norwalk called Marine Max. This company has involvement with subcontractors and slash contractors with varying hours that are convenient to rotate around my rehabilitation schedule. Both companies have part-time hours, so I may be able to work as a cleaner and a dispatcher at the same time. Another reason to attend a halfway house is that they have vocation programs that will assist me with learning how to properly complete an application, how to properly present myself during a job interview, and how to appropriately search for a job. In order to become employed in the community, I need to obtain my state identification. My mother has both my birth certificate and my social security card, so once I get those in hand, I will make an appointment with DMV to secure my state identification. As far as my close supports besides my pastor, I have several family members: my mom, Latanya, my maternal grandmother, Vera, my maternal cousin, Janae, and my friend, Allison. They will all help and support me once I am in the community. At this moment, I would like to express that I take full responsibility for my actions on the night of my offense. I make no excuses. The programs I have completed help me to understand more about myself and the impact of my actions. I understand and know how to exercise self-control, and I am more insightful, although I am not perfect. When I received a ticket for threatening, I reacted without thinking, and in that second, I forgot what I learned about self-control. I know I can't change what happened, the hurt, the pain, and destruction I caused. However, if given the opportunity to return to the community, I would take every opportunity to practice what I have learned while being incarcerated, especially the last 3 years. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you for your statement, Mr. Wright. You covered a lot of ground for us. We appreciate that. In preparation for today's hearing, and you have been here before, so you know how the process works, but this panel has reviewed your entire file to include the police report, court transcripts, your institutional records, programming, disciplinary reports, as well as we received letters of support from your friends and family members and a memorandum from your attorney Chywon. So we're very well versed in your case. We'll be asking you some questions. I was on your last panel, so we also reviewed your previous hearing. We'll be asking you some questions, then we'll turn the hearing over to the Office of Victim Services for some input. After that, the state's attorney Gary, will have the opportunity to speak, and your attorney, if your attorney appears prior to that time. And then we'll deliberate and we'll give you our decision here today. Okay?
Okay, thank you.
We'll begin with my colleague, Ms. Smith-Palmieri.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, Mr. Wright, I agree with the chair. Your opening statement gave us a lot of good information, and I was on your last hearing as well, and I listened to the audio from that hearing, and I can say this opening statement is night and day from the other one. I get a sense from this opening statement that A, you wrote it, And B, that you really kind of drilled down. You really have given a lot more thought into the crime, your role in it, why it's important to take responsibility, what shows you've taken responsibility, and what you plan to do to continue, if paroled, to live in the community and be productive and successful. So I do appreciate everything that you added in there.
Thank you.
So this is a rehearing, and when I listened to the audio tape from our first hearing, there was a lot of concern that you didn't take full responsibility. I mean, you admitted you were there, you admitted that you engaged in the sexual activity with the victim, but you really kind of danced around, you know, what was really going on and your role and what you knew was happening. So let's just kind of, you say you take full responsibility. What is it that you take responsibility for?
For the night in totality, like all together, like my crime started before I sexually gratified myself without her consent. So I take responsibility for the friends that I made, the environment I was hanging around in. I also take responsibility for trying to fit into a crowd that I didn't belong in. I just take responsibility for all of my actions that I took on the night of my offense.
And you take responsibility for assaulting the victim, for sexually assaulting.
Yes, ma'am.
And for knowing what was happening in the apartment.
Yes, ma'am. And
not doing anything to stop it.
yes, ma'am. That was that's my biggest regret, is that I didn't I could have protected her, but I didn't. So that's a part of my shame, where I felt I previously felt like I danced around a lot of the questions that I was previously asked during my last hearing. It's the shame and the guilt of my actions or my inactions that I didn't take, and the actions that I did take to partake in this crime to sexually offend the victim.
I mean, it's a horrific crime. It was hard to read. It's hard to imagine, you know, a victim going through that at the time, and it went on for, I think I read 2.5 hours. I pulled out some notes from your last hearing, and one of my notes was that, you know, that you didn't seem to understand that even if you didn't participate in every single aspect of the assault, you are still responsible because you were there and you didn't intervene. Just because you're a bystander doesn't make you less guilty.
Yeah, and that's where a lot of my shame comes from, because I not only take responsibility for my own actions, but I take responsibility for the actions of my co-defendants also. And I learned that, like, I tapped into more of my shame, like during my program, my institutional programs, where when I do share information, like I'm like, it's hard for me to share information from the night of my offense, because I know that I am rubbing someone the wrong way. So I understand how you felt when you was reading my police reports, and I'm sorry that I participated in this kind of sexual behavior in the first place.
You mentioned a couple of times that you have empathy and you've become empathetic. What does it mean to have empathy and to be empathetic?
that was the biggest tool that I learned since my last appearance. And empathy to me is stepping or putting myself in someone else's shoes and looking at it from their point of view rather than being selfish and just thinking about myself and how I felt. I think that I didn't consider how I made her feel after I got convicted of this crime. So me learning how to empathize and take responsibility helped me to put myself in her shoes.
Why do you think it was so hard for you to take responsibility? I mean, your co-defendants pled guilty. They took responsibility, so everybody knew what had happened in that apartment. They knew what each person had done, what their role was in the assault. Why was it so difficult for you to take responsibility when it was already all out there?
Like a part of me wish I could take it back. Like I wish like if this could have never happened, like I wish it was hard for me to accept that I participated in something like this. So like I wouldn't want anyone else to go through this. So it was hard for me to believe that I did this to her.
Listening to you today, you sound so much more mature than the first time that we met with you was about 2 years ago. How do you think you've grown, matured?
My behavior and with my vision board I created a vision board, and so what I did was I was taking people who had characteristics that I wanted to adopt, and like for an example, empathy was my first characteristic that I was practicing. So I believe that my behavior is how I've matured since my last hearing.
What else is on that vision board?
Sincerity, practicing manners, like saying good morning, not acknowledging people there's a different word. Validation was also something that I practiced since my last hearing.
How do you
Validating
practice
other people.
validation?
Sometimes when someone has a different point of view, active listening, which is basically repeating what that person has told you so you can make them feel heard, is how I practice validation. Whether I agree with them or not, just validating their feelings, their beliefs or ideas.
Okay, thank you for that.
You're welcome.
You know, coming here today, the last panel that heard your case, myself and Chairperson Zaccanini, we wanted you to take the long-term sex offender treatment program. Why do you think that we wanted you to take that program?
I'm not sure, but I'm actually glad I took it because it was just different from the program that I took previous to my last hearing. And one of the reasons why I liked it so much was because of the autobiography that I was able to exercise, and that helped me to basically peel back my own layers and figure myself out so I can grow.
So you said it was better than the other program. other than the autobiography, what was better about it, to use your words?
Basically the assignments. I felt more involved with the assignments. The material was also more, it felt more like appropriate for me to like adjust with my understanding of my crime and how to take responsibility. It helped me look at my actions on the night of my offense and adopt better understanding of how to think appropriately.
Those are also one of, a type of group where you get feedback from other group members. Can you recall any feedback that resonated with you, that gave you a little bit to think about?
There was a gentleman, there was actually two gentlemen. I can remember something from at least both of them. So one of them, I can say that his advice was, so it's kind of hard for me to speak on it because I feel like I'm invading the confidentiality of the group, but
Yeah, we don't want you to do that. I'm interested to hear some feedback, maybe a life lesson, right? Something that gave you something that you think about, that gave you this basis for being able to take responsibility, understanding what the impact of your crime.
I can't really remember in that regard, but I can't really remember.
Okay. All right. So let me ask you a couple other questions then. So you took that program, and within that program, you have to identify your risk factors, and then you have to talk about how you'll manage those risk factors in the community, right?
Yes.
So tell me what maybe two of the risk factors that you identified and how you're going to manage them when you're in the community.
One of my risk factors are hanging out with the negative crowd, and that would be easily managed by my support group. I believe that if I surround myself with my support group and attend all my weekly services in the church and participate in community services in the community, that I could appropriately manage hanging out with the wrong crowd. My second risk factor is substance abuse. So having a sponsor and attending AA and NA meetings is also how I appropriately manage my second risk factor.
How do you see your substance abuse as playing a part in this offense?
Well, I know that when someone is under the influence, that you can't appropriately give consent. And I was underage to begin with, so I shouldn't have been drinking at all. So,
Well, I would say can't give consent, because when you're under the influence, what are the effects of being under the influence on your decision making?
yeah, so my decisions was distorted by the consumption of alcohol, and I wasn't thinking appropriately to behave in an appropriate manner. in a responsible manner.
And your plan is to attend support meetings in the community?
Yes, ma'am.
Have you looked into where those meetings happen or how you will engage?
Yes, ma'am. I believe the location is at Morris. Forget what it's called, but I have someone in the community who already attends the program. So once I'm released, if I'm granted parole, I'll be able to make a phone call and go through that process.
Okay. All right. One of the other programs that you've taken, because we talked about your other programs at the last hearing. So for my questioning, I'm focusing more on what you've done since then. And you volunteered to take the domestic violence program.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Why did you want to take that program?
My incident of offense was very toxic. So I know domestic violence it's a program dealing with partnerships. So although I have a toxic past, I wanted to be able to recognize not only the toxicity in myself, but in others. So I wouldn't reoffend or approach a risk factor to make me reoffend. So I volunteered because I wanted to grow, and also I wanted to be responsible with the relationships that I developed.
What does it mean to have a responsible relationship, a good relationship? What does that look like for you?
Boundaries. I learned about boundaries. I learned about the different kinds of boundaries and relationships. There's emotional boundaries, intellectual boundaries. There's like 3-4 more boundaries, which I never considered before. So recognizing boundaries is able, it allows me to make a friendship and continue the friendship on the boundaries that we set at the beginning of the relationship.
What did you learn about communication skills?
I learned about listening. I think communication is, I could be wrong in the number, but it's about like 90% of listening. And the best part about listening is active listening.
You have to practice active listening.
Yeah.
Everybody has to practice active listening.
Yeah.
The other program, you've now taken voices twice. When I listened to our other hearing, you really struggled to appreciate the harm to the victim, which was another concern for the panel, that, you know, either you were image still on, you know, on that boundary of being, or that threshold of maturity, immaturity, taking responsibility, having taken voices twice now, having taken domestic violence and the long-term sex offender treatment program. You have talked a lot about harm to the victim. So tell me a little bit about, or tell me what you think the harm is to the victim in your case.
But participating in voices the second time, I was like learning once again, like speaking about my instant offense and the feedback from other people. It helped me learn about my own situation. But to answer your question about the harm that I caused, I possibly could have altered like her intimacy with her partner, her reliving certain moments, like she could have ups and downs, going through different moods. I could also my actions also cause like wounds. So those wounds could be they could be opened and relived over and over periodically, disrupting her life or her daily life.
Trust issues.
Trust issues, PTSD.
Tell me, while you've been incarcerated now for this time, what you have done or what you hope you have done to show your remorse, to give back.
Believe treat humans, not just women, but humans in general with decency, respect, and boundaries. And also to be a better person.
I read that you were tutoring in the GED program. Is that something that you still do and help with translations?
Yes, ma'am.
And so you're still doing that at Brooklyn?
Yes, ma'am. There's I believe they're altering, so I'm volunteering right now. So, but I believe they're altering the policy, so I have to appropriately sign up to do that. So I can't just volunteer anymore.
So, but you are volunteering currently?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And do you also assist with the English as a second language program?
Yes, ma'am.
And we know how you help the other inmates through that program. How does that program help you? Or that work, how does that type of work help you?
It boosts my self-esteem by knowing that I'm helping someone further themselves in education.
You mentioned, and we need to ask about that last disciplinary ticket that you were for threatening that caused you to be moved facilities, unable to finish your Voices program. So what would, kind of give us briefly, what was going on? How do you think you managed to not use those skills you had worked so hard to establish?
On that day, there was a lot of contributing factors. A lot of it was emotional turmoil I was going through. One of the factors was Voices. The conversation at Voices emotionally upset me, just as much as my police report affects me, like just hearing about crime in general affects me. So I had a hard time coping with my emotions. And I was also dealing with a death in my family. My mother's grandfather had passed away. So I was grieving, and I believe when I approached this officer and verbally abused him, I was just taking the hurt that I was feeling for the loss of my mother's father, and I took it out on him.
And when you look back at that situation, what are some steps that you could have handled it differently?
For one, I could have waited until I was calm to approach him. And two, I could have walked away when I recognized that I was raising my voice.
Is, you know, we find it disappointing after you have done all these programs that we hope, you know, they're intended to help you think through situations, look at the consequences, weigh things out, figure out what is the best course of action, best way to handle the situation. So it is disappointing to see that you have a disciplinary report of this type.
I was disappointed in myself, but some of the it was hard for me to get over my own disappointment, but some of the staff that was employed at the beginning of my incarceration helped me to accept responsibility for my actions and move forward. And I actually, after I signed my ticket, I had witnessed another inmate go through a similar situation as me, and wishing that I had did things differently before the inmate ended up in a situation like I was in. I gave him my advice and told him that he couldn't win by arguing with the CEO, and it was better for him to walk away. So I actually helped somebody by going through the disappointment myself.
Somebody you can help someone learn from your mistakes.
Yes, ma'am.
So, Mr. Wright, you've been incarcerated for quite some time now, since you were 16. Tell me what's motivated you over these years to do all these programs. And
My mother. Believing in a higher power, my faith. And also just wanting to be a better person and to make amends for my prior behavior on the night of my offense.
when you're in the community, what would be different for you?
I believe everything would be different. Nothing would be the same. But I know that I don't seek the same company that I used to. I'll also be an adult, so I'll be able to find a job and build a life that I could live. I could build a world I can live in.
Right. So you have some short and some long-term goals. I think they're all well thought out, certainly achievable.
Thank you.
Those short-term goals are those basics items that will need to be addressed, ID, license, things like that. What skills do you feel are necessary to live successfully in the community for you?
I like soft skills, like approaching people. I want to be a better people person.
I would say that goes along with good communication.
Yes,
talk, being able to listen.
yes.
Do you think you've demonstrated substantial rehabilitation to make you eligible for parole?
Yes, ma'am. I think, although I have, my last disciplinary report was, a couple months ago. I believe in 2013, I had met an inmate who was in the same cell for 10 years, which was my inspiration to stay out of trouble myself. Like I wanted to try to imitate his behavior. So even though I didn't complete the 10 years, 7 years, like that was like that's my greatest achievement. One of my greatest achievements is my incarceration.
Now, aside from this most recent ticket, it had been about 7 years since you had any difficulties.
Yes.
That is a good accomplishment.
Thank
One
you.
of the other elements that we need to consider is, your ability to live successfully in the community. And that comes with the development of a good release plan and having support in the community. So you spoke about going to the halfway house. And I've heard you talk about vocation and employment. Have you done any studying on what skills are necessary to be a good employee, or what that would be helpful when you interview for a job?
During PEP, there was a session where I briefly learned about how to search for a job, how to fill out an application. I also listen to podcasts continuously. I listen to different podcasts about employment. So most of the majority of what I know comes from other people's experiences.
Have you researched, say, reentry centers that would be beneficial for somebody like yourself who's been incarcerated for a while?
Yes, ma'am.
Is there anything I should have asked or we should have talked about that we haven't?
I can't think of anything, but
Well, let me ask you one last question. The
okay.
parole officer asked if you could foresee any high-risk situations for yourself in the community. And I wrote down that you said there won't be any. So let me ask you that in a different way. What do you think will be difficult when you're back in the community?
Making new friends would be difficult. Also, probably finding a routine.
Okay. I'm one of those people that thinks routine and structure is very important to being productive. And I think for young people, it's especially important. You realize that you will be on the sex offender registry for life.
Yes, ma'am.
Do you see any difficulties with that?
Yes, ma'am.
Tell me one or two that you foresee could cause you some angst, some frustration maybe.
if I was in the community and someone found out about my registration as a sex offender without me explaining myself, someone could possibly judge me. And I could be targeted. And react by shutting. I could shut down instead of opening up.
I think those are all real possibilities. The fact that people will judge, that you could be targeted. People will look, the public registry, you'll be judged. I would say that when you say you react and shut down, I ask that question because those are things you need to be thinking about. You need to be planning for situations, for disappointment when you want to get an apartment, get a particular job, that being on the registry will cause you some difficulties in both those areas. Even making friends, right? Going to programs. So my suggestion, my recommendation to you is that you think about all those sort of negative aspects of it. So you have a plan in place. So you don't find yourself responding like you did with the disciplinary report, right? And regretting it later, because regret for you in the community could have very serious consequences.
Thank you.
But there will be difficulties, and you need to, people live on that registry, and you'll need to plan.
Okay.
It's part of being an adult.
Thank you.
All right, Madam Chair, I have nothing further.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Wright, I have a few follow-up questions. I do want to allow time for the state's attorney and the Office of Victim Services to speak, and we are limited in our time here. But I want to go back to the instant offense because we spoke a lot about empathy here today, right? I want you to be honest with me. At the time you committed this crime, did you feel bad for the victim at all?
At the time, no, I didn't, because I didn't recognize my own distorted thoughts to put myself in her shoes.
Yeah, okay. I appreciate your honesty, and I see the difference in your thinking between then and now. Now, you were the youngest of the six of you. You were the youngest, and I understand that you had recently met your co-defendants. Did you think they were cool at that time?
I didn't hear you. Can you repeat the question?
Did you think they were cool, your co-defendants at that time?
Yes, I did. I was intrigued. I was intrigued by toxic behavior. So between meeting them and the night of my instant offense, like I was attracted to like toxic behavior.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Were you trying to impress them?
Yes, I think I was trying to impress them and also trying to fit in, so I could like belong, to create my own identity.
Yeah. Okay. Do you think it's been 3 years since your last denial? Has your thinking surrounding the offense changed from 3 years ago till now?
Can you ask me that in a different way?
Absolutely. I'll give you an example. So 3 years ago when you were interviewed, you made statements that kind of minimized, like saying that you didn't think she resisted because she didn't scream and she wasn't physically fighting people off, your victim. And you tried to protect one of your co-defendants by saying she didn't assault the victim. We know that those statements are false, right? So would you disagree today with some of the statements that you made regarding the incident offense 3 years ago?
Absolutely, because I take responsibility not only for my own actions, but the actions of my co-defendants. And that was part of not taking responsibility was part of the reason why I couldn't accept my own shame.
Yeah. After you were denied, you said that you realized you weren't ready to go home. What did you mean by that?
After I completed the track 1 phase, I just noticed the difference. I noticed how I looked at my behavior differently. So without the track 1, I wouldn't have been able to recognize my own faults.
Yeah, and it is important to note, prior to your last hearing, you had taken the short-term sex offender program, but since then you've gone on to take the much more extensive track 1 sex offender program. And we asked you to do that because we know that it certainly does have more to offer, and it does appear that you've gained something from that programming. You've been incarcerated for 16 years, so you've done probably a little more than 80% of your sentence at this point. I looked up all of your co-defendants' case files. They're all out. They've completed their sentences. You were the youngest at the time, but you chose to go to trial. Why is that?
It was hard for me to believe that I did this. It was like a bad dream. So at the time of my choice to go to trial, I didn't accept accountability. I wasn't ready to take responsibility for my behavior.
Okay, I appreciate that. Denial is a real thing. And in reviewing the other files, I found that a couple of your co-defendants are still in denial, unfortunately. What was the offer before you went to trial?
I believe my offer was 15 with a right to argue for less.
Okay. All right. Well, you certainly have spent a long time. I mean, all of your adult life, right, incarcerated to this point. I think that the additional 3 years was beneficial for you. The denial was certainly the right decision. And when you say empathy, I do believe that you can now put yourself in your victim's shoes. I mean, we'll never understand what she goes through, right? This will be with your victim for the rest of her life. She will suffer. But you do appear to have some insight into your criminal behaviors. Okay, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Mr. Stazauskas.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, sir.
Oh, yeah.
My colleagues in your opening statement have answered most of my questions. I just wanted to talk about one thing, and it's about living in a halfway house. You realize it's restrictive. There are a lot of rules. You're going to be on parole, right? What do you think would happen if you have an outburst in the halfway house like you did with your disciplinary report? What do you think would happen?
I'll return back to prison.
Okay, I just want you to understand that there's not the same kind of leeway when you're on parole. It's very restrictive. There are going to be a lot of rules. You really have to think things through in advance. You're going to have a long regardless of what happens, say you have a long term of parole coming, you know? So that was the only thing I wanted you just to understand, that you could come back, but like very easily. If you have some kind of a problem or some things don't work out how you want them in the community. And that's all I have, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, that's a good point that my colleague made. 10 years of special parole, it's part of your sentence, with a special management unit, it won't be easy. But that's intentional, right? You still have a lot of work to do on yourself.
Mhm.
Yes,
Yeah.
ma'am.
Yeah, okay.
And I just would
Go ahead.
add to
Yeah.
that, when you talk about, wanting treatment and engaging in therapy and employment skills, if you can use parole for those types of resources. So it doesn't have to be this adversarial relationship, whether it's discretionary parole or special parole. It will be restricted, but it will be as productive as you allow it to be. They have a lot to offer, and you're a very young person.
Yeah. Thank you. Okay, at this point, we'll turn the hearing over to the Office of Victim Services for input. We'll ask you to listen and please don't interrupt at all. Ms. Hamlet Williams, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Madam Chair. I did speak with a member of the family of the victims, and she asked that I relate to the board the following, and I quote, "I will not want him released. That was a very traumatic experience for my entire family. That type of crime was just pure evil." End quote. Thank you.
Thank you.
At this time, the attorneys will be afforded the opportunity to make a statement. We will turn it over to the state's attorney. Do you wish to proceed?
Yes, thank you. Good morning, members of the board. As you know, Mr. Wright was convicted of 2 counts of sexual assault in the 1st degree, conspiracy to commit sexual assault in the 1st degree, and assault in the 3rd degree. The sentence received by Mr. Wright was appropriate for the severity of the crimes he committed, and he should serve his full sentence. We understand these crimes were committed when Mr. Wright was under 18, but these crimes were extremely serious and violent. In the interest of time, I will not state all the facts of the case since the board's already familiar. However, I do want the board to know that given the serious nature of these convictions and the impact of these crimes on the victim, the state opposes the early release of Mr. Wright. Mr. Wright was convicted by a jury after trial, and the current sentence reflects the seriousness of his crimes. We heard from the victim advocate just now that the victims do not want him released, and the state does agree with that. Them further. Thank you.
Thank you, Attorney Karen.
We'll turn it over to the public defender. Attorney Chung, you are connected, correct?
Yeah.
Can you please state your name, juris number, and business address for us, please?
Here.
Yeah, but we can't.
Attorney Chong, please press *6 to unmute.
Attorney Chung, are you connected?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, thank you, sir. Can you please state your name? Can you please state your name, your juris number, and business address, please?
Yes, thank you. My name is Claude Chong, and I am the public defender for the Milford Judicial District Public Defender's Office, which is located at 14 West River Street in Milford, Connecticut. My juris number is 409224, and I'm here on behalf of Mr. Chywon Wright's application for parole.
Okay, and Mr. Chung, this is your opportunity to provide a statement. You can proceed, sir.
Thank you. And members of the board, on behalf of Mr. Wright, I would like to make a few comments. The first thing I would like to address is the concern that members raise regarding whether or not Mr. Wright has accepted responsibilities for his actions, for the crimes in which he had committed. Mr. Wright has come a long way since his first appearance before the board. And I believe that Mr. Wright has accepted full responsibility. And what I would like to raise is that Mr. Wright has come a long way. He had a lot of growing up to do. And I believe with respect to him accepting responsibility, I think the issue is not that he has difficulty accepting responsibility. I think he has difficulty articulating to the board. And the reason why I say that is because Mr. Wright, at the time when he committed the crimes, was a 16-year-old boy. He was a child. And I think it took him years to come to the point where he could accept responsibility for his behavior. It took a lot of soul searching, a lot of insight and self-reflection. And let me put this in context. When he committed the crimes as a 16-year-old boy, his only role models were his gang members. He did not have any positive role models. And what is important to understand is that boys mature, boys learn how to act responsibly, boys learn how to be a man by imitating older boys and men. That's how boys learn. And I think the fact that he was following these older boys, he wanted to please them. He wanted to go along with what they were doing. That psychologically, as an immature child, at that point, as a 16-year-old boy, he didn't recognize the gravity of his actions. And also, I think that he has a lot of guilt and shame. And because of the guilt and shame, it was difficult for him at his last hearing to express that acceptance of responsibility and acknowledging the harm he caused to the victim. In my opinion, Mr. Wright has come a long way. I have noticed a lot of maturity, even when you compare how he is today to 3 years ago when he appeared before the board. He, as in my opinion and in my observation, he has come a long way. And I think he is a good candidate for parole. He recognizes that what is key for him to be successful is to surround himself with positive people and not to re-engage or so associate himself with young men, peers who engage in criminal activity. And he has expressed to me a high degree of motivation. He is motivated to succeed if given the opportunity to be admitted to parole. He has a plan. He wants to take advantage of all the resources in the community. Counseling. He wants to successfully engage in all the available programs to deal with his anger. He's motivated to address his substance abuse issues and how that contributed to his involvement in this crime. So let me briefly address the recent misconduct where he got into a dispute, inappropriate behavior with members of corrections. I have discussed that with him, and he realizes that was inappropriate. He realized he was wrong. And he's been working on addressing that. He realizes that when he's released to the community, life is hard. And he's going to be surrounded with stressors, and it's going to be difficult when he eventually joins community. He recognized that as a registered sex offender with these convictions, it's going to be a struggle. But he's determined not to slip back into self-destructive behavior because he realizes after so many years in prison that he doesn't want to throw his life away. And he's committed to avail himself of all the resources available in the community, counseling, eventually obtain employment, reconnect with his family members, especially his mother, who's been by his side all these years. And he has told me on repeated occasions he doesn't want to be back in corrections. He wants to work hard to do all he can to become a law-abiding, productive member of the community and not reoffend. So on behalf of Mr. Wright, I respectfully request that the court grant him the opportunity to be admitted into parole. Thank you very much.
Mr. Wright, we're going to enter deliberation at this time, so you can listen to our deliberation. We just ask that you not interrupt, and we'll come back to you with our decision, okay? Ms. Smith-Palmieri.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So as has been said a few times today, we're here for a 1584 hearing because of Mr. Wright's age at the time that he committed the offense, age 16. So in reviewing his suitability for parole today, one of the things that we do consider is his age at the time of the offense. So he's 16, he's 32 years old now. We need to look at whether or not he's demonstrated substantial rehabilitation. I would say that he has, which is evidenced by not only the number of programs that he's taken, but I would also say by the programs that he's volunteered to take to improve his self-awareness, to improve his ability to communicate with others in a productive and efficient way, how to have positive relationships, whether that's through friendships, acquaintances, or romantic relationships in the future. He volunteered to take domestic violence to learn that. He also took the Voices program twice. So since the first hearing, that's important for us today, because I think the panel prior was concerned, one, with his ability to recognize the harm that offenses of this particular nature causes to the victim in its long term. He didn't use the words PTSD, but it's trauma. It goes on and on for the victim. And we were really struggling with how genuinely he was remorseful and if he could understand what it was to be remorseful. And that comes with taking responsibility, which sounds as though came from taking the Track 1 program. He got a lot of feedback from other group members. He talked about writing the autobiography, which helped him look at his own life and his own decision-making. It sounds as though he got advice. And in reading the summary of the treatment program, the instructor was able to point out that he did participate. So he didn't just keep the seat warm, he participated. He did the homework assignment insightfully. And I think today he demonstrated what he learned from that program. One of the other elements that we need to look at is his release plan. And is it reasonable? Is it productive? So when I go through what Mr. Wright has proposed in terms of his release to the community, I would say that it is. He has asked to be released to the halfway house, which we know is a stable environment for what his needs are. He has employment lined up. He's interested in engaging in continued vocational skills. He will be participating in treatment. Yeah. We know that through the special management program, but he's also says he wants to stay connected to his religious services. and receive therapy through his pastor. He does have short and long-term goals that I think are reasonable and realistic for somebody that's been incarcerated at his age, and what he'll need to do to live productively, as simple as getting an ID and a driver's license at some point. He does have social support in the community, which is another element that we need to consider. He has family members that have stayed by his side and he communicates with and are willing to provide him that social and emotional support that he'll need when he's in the community. So I do think that he's met the elements for suitability for parole under 1584, and I would be willing to vote in favor. I appreciate also the victim's family coming forward. We didn't have input the last time, and it is always important to hear from the victims, especially in crimes like this, because I think we recognize sincerely and deeply how this crime probably has affected the victim for her life.
Thank you. Yeah, I too would like to thank the Office of Victim Services and the victim's family for coming forward with a statement. It is evident to me that Mr. Wright is not the same person he was 16 years ago at 16 when he came in. He's demonstrated that through his behavior, program participation, and sharing some insight, things that he's learned since. I think, he's still young. And I think there's time for him to go out into the community, do the right thing, and hopefully give back to the community that he took from. There's plenty of opportunities out there for him to be of service in the community. And we always hope for that. He does have 10 years of special parole to follow his sentence, where he will be supervised under the special management unit. And I hope that he can take the success and accomplishments that he's gained while incarcerated out into the community. But I think he's ready, and I would be in favor of Grant as well. Mr. Sadowskis?
Thank you. I agree with both of what you've said. And one of the things that impressed me, he was able to point out and identify some risk factors that he'll face in the community and his plan to mitigate them and how he's going to handle that when he's out. And like you both said, he has the support of his family, his church, an instructor of a halfway house, and being on parole to help him. So I'm also in favor of granting parole.
Thank you. So we have a victim, there's co-defendants, halfway house, and a mental health eval. Anything else? Anything further?
I just want to discuss the alcohol.
I mean, I think, it's a long time. Yeah.
He was a minor then.
Yeah, he was 16.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. In the matter of Chywon, Wright, inmate number 364261. 364261. I move to grant parole effective January 30th, 2025, with the following additional conditions. You'll parole to a halfway house. You're to have no contact with your victim, initials SM. You're to have no contact with your co-defendants, Brian Fuller, Stephen Garrett, Yamil Rivera, Anthony Stevenson, or Eliza Gibbs. You'll participate in a mental health evaluation and treatment if it's deemed necessary. Is there a second?
Community-based treatment.
Oh, yeah, I missed that. Huh? Okay. In addition, you'll participate in problem sexual behavior treatment in the community. Anything further?
Nothing.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Do you have questions, sir?
No, ma'am.
Okay, you will get all of this in writing, and someone will be in contact with you. Be patient, of course. It'll take some time to find the right fit for you as far as a halfway house. Okay, but we wish you the best, and we hope that you'll continue to work on yourself. Thank you to everyone for their participation today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This concludes the 1584 hearing for Chywon Wright, 364261. It is 10:30 a.m.
We'll take a 5-minute recess before we start the next case.
Good morning, Mr. Sanchez. We're just taking a 5-minute break. We'll be with you shortly, okay?
Yes.
Thank you.
You can stay connected, so we don't have to reconnect. Just know that it is going out on the live stream, so we can hear everything.
Thank you.
Oh, I speak up.
Good morning, Mr. Sanchez.
Morning.
My name is Parole Officer Logan. Today is Thursday, January 30th, 2025, and this is a Public Act 1584 hearing of the Connecticut Board of Pardons and Paroles. Mr. Sanchez, for the record, the state of Connecticut passed and made effective October 1st, 2015, Public Act 1584, an act concerning lengthy sentences for crimes committed by a child or youth and the sentencing of a child or youth convicted of certain felony offenses. You fall under this act, and basically this means that you are under the age of 18 and that the board shall give great weight to the diminished culpabilities of juveniles as compared to adults, the hallmark features of youth, and any subsequent growth and maturity that you displayed while we are reviewing you for suitability today. The following board members are present this morning, and by stating their names on the record, certify they have reviewed all statutorily required documents in preparation of this hearing.
Good morning, sir. I'm Jennifer Zaccanini.
Good morning, Robert Sazowskis.
Deborah Smith Palmieri.
Also in attendance this morning is the public defender. Can you please state your name, service number, and business address?
Yes, thank you. Good morning. My name is Desmond Ryan, juris number 443288, and my business address is 55 Farmington Avenue, Hartford, Connecticut, 06105.
Thank you. Also in attendance is the state's attorney. Please state your name, juris number, and business address.
Charmise Walcott, business address 101 Lafayette Street in Hartford, and juris number. I'll provide that via email in just a moment.
All of us present this morning in regard to this hearing, please state your name for the record.
Good morning, Rachel Spanzo.
Attorney Walcott, have you located your juris number?
No, I'm gonna have my secretary pull it. But she'll do that in just a moment.
Thank you. Also
Thank you.
present is Office of Victim Service Advocate Hamlet Williams. Mr. Sanchez, please state your name and inmate number for the record.
My name is Miguel Sanchez, inmate number 238008.
This is a public hearing in accordance with Chapter 14, Freedom of Information Act, Connecticut General Statute 1200, which applies to this procedure. Mr. Sanchez, if you have any questions concerning the above, please bring your questions to the attention of the panel at this time.
No.
Again, this is a public hearing. Do you have any questions, and are you willing to proceed at this time?
Yes, I'm willing to proceed.
This
No
1584. Okay, thank you. This 1584 hearing is being conducted in consideration of the parole application for Miguel Sanchez, who is serving 35 years for murder, 5 years consecutive for use of a firearm for A, B, or C felony, and 5 years consecutive for carrying a pistol without a permit. The total effective sentence is 45 years flat. There is victim input in this case. There is an offender accountability plan for the offender. It has been reviewed and shows he has completed voices, tier 2, threshold, the honor unit, some honor unit programs, the SRG program. He is enrolled in college. He has completed alternatives to violence, basic and advanced. He has participated in the lifers group, and he works in the sign shop. Utilizing the statewide collaborative offender risk evaluation system, the offender's overall score on the RT falls within the moderate range of risk for recidivism. Mr. Sanchez, this is your opportunity to express to the board why you believe you should be granted parole. You may begin.
Good morning, esteemed and honorable members of the Board of Pardons and Paroles. I am extremely humbled and grateful for this opportunity I'm being given to address you today. When I entered prison as a teenager, almost 3 decades ago, I never imagined that one day I would have the opportunity to speak at a parole hearing. Now, today, I am coming before you not as a 17-year-old adolescent from that fateful night in 1995, but as a 47-year-old adult who has used the nearly 3 decades of incarceration to grow, mature, and reflect upon my reprehensible actions of that night. That night, I recklessly and foolishly took it upon myself to commit the worst act a person can commit. I took the life of another human being. Although I'm coming here today with the purpose of sharing my life transformation and rehabilitation, I would like to take this opportunity to once again tell the family of the victim that I am deeply ashamed and sorry for my actions that took away a beloved son, brother, and grandson from them. In one moment of fear and frustration, I shamelessly shattered their family and my community. I understand that my words can never provide the necessary healing, as they are forever impacted by my impulsive and reckless actions. I know that my words will never reverse the damage or repair the pain that I inflicted. I live with that torment every day of my life. Ever since my incarceration, I have used my time to reflect on where my life took the negative and destructive path it did, and how my foolish teenage mindset destroyed 2 families and a community, leaving them to attempt to find ways to rebuild around that tragic night. Although I was a teenager and still in high school, there are no excuses for my actions. Because of my shameful actions, I left many people hurting, including my son, who lost a father before he was ever born, and my girlfriend, who lost a partner, forcing her to become a mother and a father at an early age. As a parent, I can now fully understand the meaning of unconditional love, and I can't imagine the anguish of losing a loved one, especially a child. After serious reflection, I knew that I needed to completely change my mindset if I wanted to become someone better. Now, today, I come before you as a matured man with deep respect and sincere desire to share the journey I have traveled over the past 28 years. I entered prison as a teenager, and while I cannot undo the mistakes of my youth, I have worked relentlessly to transform myself into a person who is no longer defined by my past actions, but by the positive changes I've made during my nearly 3 decades of incarceration. My journey towards self-improvement began with a commitment to education. I obtained my GED early in my incarceration, which opened the door to further opportunities. I participated in numerous programs, each of which contributed to my growth and understanding of myself and others. While in McDougall, I took multiple programs. However, some of the most impactful programs that I took were the parenting program, which taught me how to be an involved and responsible father, even while incarcerated, and the Alternatives to Violence program, which helped me learn nonviolence methods of conflict resolution. I now recognize that finding a solution in order to resolve a conflict many times differs. So instead of deliberating over issues, strategies, and means of compromise, I learned to concentrate on identifying the needs of both parties, and only then can you seek effective strategies in order to fulfill those needs. I graduated from the Electronics Voc Ed program that allowed me to help repair electronics, not only for the inmate population, but also for the elderly, giving me a sense of purpose and connection to the community outside. In Cheshire, I took part in multiple programs as well, such as Thresholds and Voices, where I learned the profound impact of crime on victims, their families, and the community. Through the Tier 2 addiction program, I not only learned about addiction, but became a mentor to others, helping inmates struggling with their addictions. One of my proudest accomplishments was working as a teacher's aide, tutoring inmates in GED, ABE, and ESL classes, providing support to those who, like me, sought a second chance through education. I was also fortunate enough to attend college classes for Yale, Naugatuck Valley Community College, Wesleyan University, and Middlesex Community College, despite the rigorous entry processes. I earned both an associate's and a bachelor's degree in liberal studies, and even assisted professors as a teacher's assistant in courses like calculus, English, sociology, and since my commutation, jazz. Since my commutation, I've mentored multiple groups for Tier 2, while also attending Catholic Mass on Mondays, Bible study on Tuesdays, Legion of Mary prayer group on Thursdays, programs for arts and humanity, science and physics, and more Wesleyan classes. This past June, I was able to walk across the stage to receive my Bachelor of Liberal Studies degree, which I had earned back in 2021, during a graduate ceremony held at Cheshire. The event was surreal as I got to share the event with my sister and son, while also meeting and conversing with Secretary of Education Miguel Cardona. Secretary Cardona left me with a saying that I'll never forget. He told me, don't let what other people think of you define who you are, because you'll never like where that path leads. The graduation gave me not only a sense of joy and pride, but it also gave me even more motivation to continue the path of self-improvement that I have been on. Although I wasn't able to see my son's graduation from Western Connecticut State University, he was able to be there for mine, and having him attend my graduation was a joy that is indescribable. My son has been one of my biggest supporters and a driving force behind my commitment to becoming better than who I once was. Furthermore, I've participated in multiple honor programs like Building on Experience 1 and 2, which helps to focus on trauma and rehabilitation. This was especially relevant for me, as it has allowed me to reflect on my own traumas in childhood and how certain things helped to shape my path forward. I am currently housed in the Cheshire Honor Program, which was created to assist those who are serious about seeking change and rehabilitation by providing the necessary tools to move past one's errors and focus on who we can be and not who we once were at the lowest point in our lives. Being a part of the honor program taught me valuable lessons in integrity, responsibility, and respect. As a mentor, tutor, and teacher's assistant within the honor program, the most valuable lesson for me was how to communicate honestly with others without coming off as passing judgment. By learning how to use non-aggressive communication, I have been able to be very honest, even using my own life experiences as examples, in order to help other inmates overcome their own life struggles. This allows you to communicate without resulting to the use of criticism or insults. Time and again, I've seen how people are able to transcend the effects of personal struggles and pain when they have someone who can hear them empathetically. These principles have become the foundation of who I am today. In addition to my academic achievements, I've gained valuable work experience. I currently work as a graphic designer, machinist, and clerk with the Correctional Enterprises of Connecticut, where I contribute to projects that serve various state agencies. As a graphic designer and machinist, I create things such as plaques, nameplates, signs, and banners. As a clerk, I am responsible for inspections, shipping, filing, and creating invoices, sometimes for orders valued over $200,000. This work has not only provided me with professional skills and a productive work ethic, but has also shown me how I can contribute positively to society. I have spent over 60% of my life in prison due to my immature and irresponsible actions as a teenager. However, I am no longer that immature youth. Today, I am imbued with purpose. I remain in prison as a matured and educated middle-aged man who, at 47 years old, has focused on helping transform not only myself, but others as well through education. I was a minor at the time of my offense, and with the assistance of the DOC's programs and educational opportunities, I have been able to grow up with a new vision. Over the years, I have fortunately been able to build deeper connections with my son, brothers, sisters, and dad, who are all willing to assist my transition back into society. My close personal relationships with each of them will benefit me in ensuring that I make better daily decisions, as well as maintain the understanding that I have people who love me and are just as affected by my actions. The relieving and therapeutic effect of having loved ones communicate regularly and come to visit has helped me tremendously during my incarceration. I now have a mental and emotional support system comprised of people who truly care about my life and are invested in helping me transition back into the community. I am extremely grateful for my correspondence with Holly Wazalewski, which has also helped shape my perspective as she has provided me with many useful tools that can help any transition back into society. She has even provided me with information on a pro-social group called Hang Time, which helps justice-impacted people heal from their trauma. Other useful platforms include the Platform to Employment and Reentry Welcome Center, which gather information from you and make referrals to other agencies as well as jobs. Goodwill, Emerge, and the We Rise program, which connects you to paid training in ServSafe, which is food preparation, OSHA, forklift, construction, carpentry, masonry, landscaping, and much more. However, since my passion has always been to assist others, Ms. Wazalewski recommended that I should look into expanding on my bachelor's degree and become a social worker, which has now become my ultimate goal. Looking back, I can say with confidence that I am a different person than the one who entered prison so many years ago. I have come to understand the pain and harm I caused and am deeply regretful for the impact my actions had on my victim, his family, and my community. Through my participation in restorative justice programs like Thresholds and Voices, I gained a deeper understanding of this impact, and I continue to work on making amends through my actions and growth. I was born into a difficult environment. After my parents' divorce, I was raised by my maternal grandparents. My early years were marked by loneliness and emotional neglect, which led to feelings of isolation and a desire for belonging. While my grandfather was a loving and caring figure, my grandmother, who struggled with alcoholism, was less affectionate, and at times I endured physical punishment. These early experiences shaped my understanding of relationships and my search for identity. However, I now recognize that I have the ability to change these patterns for the better, both for myself and for those I interact with. Today, I am no longer the young man who made poor decisions. The man I am now is one who values education, personal responsibility, and integrity. I understand the importance of community and the value of contributing positively to society. I ask that you consider the transformation I have undergone, the positive changes I've made, and the contributions I am ready to make once I am released. I am not the same person who entered prison almost 30 years ago, and I am committed to continuing to grow and contribute meaningfully to society upon my release. Again, thank you to the Board of Pardons and Paroles, my loved ones, friends, mentors, and everyone who has played a role in guiding me to become the person that I am today. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your statement, Mr. Sanchez. You certainly offered us a lot of information. In addition, this panel has thoroughly reviewed your file, which contained a lot of information, including your police report, pre-sentence investigation report, your transcripts, all of your institutional records, all the programming that you've taken, and correspondence from Attorney Ryan that includes reports from Dr. Fraser and social worker Sponzo. So we're very well versed in your case. We do have some additional questions. When we're done with our questions, we'll turn the hearing over to the Office of Victim Services for input, followed by statements from State's Attorney Walcott, and your attorney, and we'll deliberate and we'll give you our decision here today. Okay?
Yes.
All right. So you've stated multiple times you've been incarcerated for, I calculated 28 years, but you think it's closer. Well, it is. It's almost 30. 28 years now. Certainly you've done a lot during your incarceration. You've involved yourself in a lot, but I want to go back to your instant offense. Let's cover that briefly. We're not here to retry the case, but just to get a better understanding of where you were at 17 years old when you committed this offense. So I think everyone agrees that this was gang related.
Yes.
So how did you become involved in the gang?
Well, I wasn't a member specifically, but I associated with them heavily. So growing up in my household, my parents got divorced. I grew up with my grandparents. My mother, she abandoned me to my grandmother. She moved on. So I didn't really have any kind of guidance, any friends, family. My brothers and sisters were growing up in their two separate households with my mom and her new marriage, my father and his new marriage. There wasn't really much there. So I bumped into a friend named Frankie, and he was like, "Hey, what's up?" I hadn't seen him in a long time. So we were speaking. He was like, "Hey, you want to come hang out with me?" At the time, I didn't know what a Latin King was at the time, because in the North End, there was no such thing. So I went to a party. There were a bunch of people wearing colors, gangs, paraphernalia, stuff like that. So I was talking. I loved the camaraderie, the speaking, the talking. So I became kind of entrenched in the mysticism of it all. I seen it. I appreciated it. I was like, you know what? This is something that I might want to do. More and more, I became hanging out with Frankie. I met more of his friends. I started hanging out with more of them. So it kind of went into that.
Okay. So during that time, was it common for you to encounter conflicts with other gang members in the area?
No, at the time, in the early 90s, there was no conflict between the Solidos and the Latin Kings or the 20 Love. Everyone was, it was just regular. The conflicts came, I think, in the end of 93, maybe 94. So at that point in time, I had already established these friendships with some of these guys. And I was, how you say, I appreciated their caring about me, their willingness to bring me in and hang out with me and take part in whatever I was doing and vice versa.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so this offense, I'll need you to walk me through it because I read some contradictory reports here, but there was a car driving by your house, right?
No. So,
okay, go ahead, tell me.
So that night, I was hanging out with a neighbor and his girlfriend in front of my building.
Yeah.
And two guys came up on a bike, on two bikes. So I didn't know who these guys were. They were just looking at me. So I kind of ignored it. I was like, oh, I don't know what they're looking at. And they left. So we stayed in front of the building for a few minutes, maybe a little more. So I went back inside. So I went inside. I had a girlfriend of mine at the time. So we were watching TV. My doorbell rings. When my doorbell rings, I come to answer the door. It's my next door neighbor. He says, yeah, those guys are back and there's a bunch of them. So I was like, so my curiosity kicked in. What? So I went straight to the door. When I straight to the door and I looked out, there was a car parked in front of me with two individuals staring at me laughing. And there was a group of 7, maybe 8 people crossing the street. So when I seen that, I turned to my left and I said, damn, you see this? And as soon as I turned to my right, I caught a bottle to the face. When I caught this bottle to the face, that's when everything happened.
So why were they there?
I'm assuming because of the police report that they didn't like me because of my association with the Latin Kings.
Right. Okay, so then your version is that the same neighbor goes and gets you a gun?
No, my neighbor, his girlfriend went upstairs to get the gun when she saw the crowd forming. So when he came to the door, she was already going to get the gun because she didn't like what was forming outside. So she was already uncomfortable. Yeah. So when I went to the front door, that's when I looked out and I seen everything that was happening.
So whose gun was it?
It was my next door neighbor's. So his girlfriend went and retrieved the pouch with a gun in it.
Okay. So you take the gun and what?
I took the gun, I opened the door, and I fired into the crowd.
Okay. So what was your intent at that time?
At the time, the one thing that went through my head was, okay, I'm hurt, I'm in pain, and I'm in danger, and I need to stop this. So that's when I reacted. It was just an impulse. I didn't have, it was just something that just happened in the moment. I reacted, and I foolishly took out the gun and I fired into the group.
So your victim was not an intended target?
No.
Okay. So how would you handle that situation differently today?
Well, one, when my doorbell rang, I wouldn't have went to the door curious. That was what propelled the snowball. If I would have just said, okay, and then called the police, law enforcement, that's what they're there for. So my initial reaction was, oh, let me see what's going on. Instead of, oh my God, take his word for it and then call the proper authorities. That's where my mistake came. I should have just let the police handle this.
Yeah. Had you handled guns prior to this?
Yes and no. I mean, a friend of mine was a hunter, so I had handled guns before. Friends of mine who've had guns, I've also seen them, so I can't say that I've never seen a gun in a friend's hand before. But me firing a weapon or anything of that nature, no.
No. Okay. All right. So you were in fear at the time?
Yes.
Okay. Your victim was 18 years old? That's what I understand? 18 years old. You mentioned your own son. If someone had taken the life of your son, would you forgive them?
It would take a tremendous amount of effort because it's a loved one. So I understand perfectly if the family doesn't want to forgive me. You know, I've repeatedly asked for their forgiveness. I understand the emotion involved. As a parent, I can't imagine losing my son. A parent's never supposed to die before their child. So I understand if they continue to hate me for the rest of their lives.
The child, I think you had it backwards. The child's not supposed to die before the parent. Yeah.
Yes, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I understood what you meant. Okay, so then all of this goes down, and we know, or you think it's gang related, but you go into prison and you join the gang officially.
Yes.
Okay, why?
So-
Help us understand that.
So when I came from New York, I was extradited here. I went to Lafayette Street. So in Lafayette, you wait till you're officially charged and all that, then you get transferred to the Meadows. So when I wasn't even in Connecticut longer than 24 hours. I was being chained up along the wall. And one guy comes running to the bars and he starts saying, "I'm going to get you, Mickey. We're going to get you." So I wasn't even in prison. I wasn't even arrested more than 24 hours before someone told me that they're going to get me. So I'm alone. I'm not a member of anything. I'm in jail for the murder of a well-known gang leader. So it's like, what do I do now? So when I got to the Meadows, I was in panic mode. I was in survival mode. I didn't know what to do next. So I said, well, for my own protection, I think this is my best and logical way of trying to survive.
Okay, so then why renounce? Why'd you renounce?
Well, that came to a head after I became affiliated. It was not the way I thought it was, because I thought the camaraderie, the brotherhood, they convinced me that, so what they told me was it was a Hispanic rights activist movement, right? That we are there for the people, for the community and all this. They had me convinced of that until I came to prison and I realized that that's a lie. You weren't there for that. You were more concerned with each other and in whatever it is that they were involved in. So I started to think about this, like, this is a mistake. But it wasn't until I was in the gang unit and my father brought my son, who was only a couple months old, to come see me. So when you're not allowed to have anyone who's not immediate family come see you. So my dad had to bring him in. So when he came in holding my son, I couldn't touch him. I couldn't hold him. I couldn't do anything. I could only look down through that glass window. And when I looked at his face, all I saw was my face looking back up at me. And that was the epiphany moment. That was the moment where it was a slap in the face. And I realized that is this the life that you thought you were supposed to have? This is what you wanted for your life? And from that point on, I just dedicated myself to turning into somebody different.
Okay. Thank you for that explanation. Now, it's my understanding that you were actually from New York and visiting Connecticut. Is that right?
So I lived in Connecticut for a long time. And at the time that this happened, I moved to New York. So I was staying with a girlfriend up there. And I came down here on July 3rd because I was hoping to spend the 4th of July out here. And July 9th is when all this happened. So I wasn't even here longer than 6 days before all this happened.
Who were you staying with?
At the time, I was staying with Julie Guzman.
Oh, you were staying with a girlfriend? Is that what you said?
Yes.
So while living in New York, you had a girlfriend in Connecticut?
No, it was an ex-girlfriend in Connecticut. Oh. But the attraction of, oh, why don't you come see me? I'm a teenager. I kind of, I fell for it. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you for all of those explanations. I know it was a long time ago and you did go through the SRG program twice, right?
Yes.
Why the second time?
So the second time when I was affiliated, so from the point that I left the gang unit, I was 13 and a half years ticket free. I wasn't involved in any gang activity or anything like that. So they move in a young kid into my cell, 19 years old, named June. He was from Brook Street in Hartford. So he was a member of the Latin Kings. He was going down the same avenues, same roads as me. Me as the mentor, facilitator, teacher type, I thought, well, maybe I can help transform this guy into thinking something different. So now he's in my cell. You don't get to choose who your cellies are. They just come in. They say, no comfort moves or whatever. Anyway, so we were talking. I was trying to help him see, like, listen, you want to know what I went through with these people? And back and forth, I was making leeway. So on that day, they told him, transferring. So he packed up all his things and all this. And he left his phone number, his address, and his social media information at the time, and left it on top of my phone book on the TV. So what we do in prison, whenever somebody's moving out, we clean the cell out of respect for the next person coming in so they can have a clean environment when they drop their stuff off. So while I was cleaning, my door pops. The officers, hey, Sanchez, put a T-shirt on and come up to the bubble. So I said, okay. So I put a T-shirt on. I start to walk. By halfway I got up there, a whole bunch of officers came in to shake the block down. They shook my cell down. They found the phone number with the social media information, and that's where I got the ticket.
Okay. All right, thank you for that explanation. I will point out that it's been over 10 years since your last disciplinary report. Why? What happened at that point? 10 years ago?
So that was
So I'm sorry, I'm gonna rephrase that question. I'm not asking about that specific ticket. Why have you not gotten any tickets in the past 10 years?
Oh, because I've been dedicating myself to I'm a mentor now. I'm a tutor. I'm a teacher's aide. You know, people look up to me. I'm respected. So I have to carry myself differently. So all those foolish trying to buy cheese secretly, trying to buy butter, you know, those kind of things, I shouldn't have put myself in that situation. So from that point on, I said, you know what, I got to do more. Because even though I thought I was doing good, this is still not good enough. So I focused myself on, okay, now I'm teaching people. So if I'm going to teach, I got to live up to the same standards. So.
Okay. And I appreciate you pointing that out, because I do note in the dates that it is about 10 years ago you started tutoring and getting involved in all of this education and programming. I mean, you've done it all. I wonder if you appreciate what a degree from Wesleyan University means.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean it's very prestigious, and it's hard to come by.
Yes.
Yeah.
I was also honored. I was fortunate enough to meet Governor Malloy, and I met Secretary of Education Miguel Cardona, which was actually, he's a great guy.
Yeah.
Very, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so you're in the honor unit, and I understand and read the handbook for the unit that you co-wrote.
Yes.
So tell us what goes on in the honor unit, because I don't know much about it.
So the honor unit is we consider it a community for a second chance, for a second look. So you can't just get into the honor unit. You have to file an application. It has to be reviewed by other facilitators, our unit manager, counselor. So when you're approved, you are committed to becoming somebody better. So we don't want you to be seen as somebody from your past. We don't want to hold your feet to the fire for something that happened way back then. We want you to become something better. So the purpose of the community was to bring you in, give you the necessary programming and tools to become somebody better than who you once were. So that's when I came up with the guidebook. The intention was, because of my tutoring and my mentoring and all that, I thought guys come and they take programs because it's forced on them, or it's the OAP, and I didn't get anything from it. I'm just here for the certificate. So I wanted to challenge them. So I was like, okay, well, if you didn't get anything from it, what can you provide that somebody else might get something from? So don't complain that you're not getting anything from it. So I was like, show me something. Why don't you become involved? Try to become something. Try to reach somebody else. And it was therapeutic in the fact that some people took this time to actually create these programs. So now they're invested. They come out, you see them reading books. They're coming out with a vision, a mission statement. How are they going to, sources? How are they going to create these programs? And some of these programs they actually implement. It goes through the unit manager, Charlo. She reviews it. She then sits in our groups. We facilitate them ourselves. So we try to make this a cathartic and therapeutic environment.
How many people are in the honor unit?
92. We've just had 3 more, so 95.
Okay. And is it modeled after the True unit at all?
Something similar. They have more. They have like true dollars, different things that we don't understand. Yeah, so we don't get into that. Ours is not only about programming and how you can better yourself and your commitment to these programs. Because 1, you have to work, and 2, you have to take programs. This isn't something where you're just going to come here and sit here and just do nothing and try to enjoy in the environment and everything to have. No, you have to be committed. If you're not committed, then you have to go. That's
so everyone's busy all day.
Yes.
So what is your day? What does your day look like?
Oof. So each day is different.
Yeah.
So on my Mondays, Wesleyan classes differ. So every semester we have different schedules. So I take 1 class this semester. I'm taking Democracy and Its Discontents, which is Monday afternoon. So I go to the sign shop, I work there. The sign shop, we create reflectors, banners, name plaques, dog tags. I mean, there's so many different things we do up there. So I come back at 11, I get ready for class at 11:30. From 11:30 to 2:30, I'm in Wesleyan. At 4:45 on Monday, I go to Catholic Mass. I come back at 6 o'clock. And then from 6 o'clock, I'm reading and studying. It depends on, like Sunday, I hold the program facilitators workshop. So that's what I call it. So Sunday afternoons at 11. On Tuesday, same thing. If there's a Wesleyan class, I go to that or a study hall. I go to Bible study from 5 to 6:15. Then I come back, same procedure. If there's a group meeting we have at night, I'll take that. If not, I'm studying and reading, trying to prepare myself for whatever work that I have the following day. Wednesday is usually my relaxed day because there's lockdowns either in the daytime for training or at nighttime for training. So on Thursday, I go to Legion of Mary again, 4:45. It's a prayer group. I'm a Catholic, so we believe in, okay, so Wesleyan. We have night study halls now from 5 to 8. So that's a new thing. Friday nights, we have we're doing a Building on Experience 3. So that's from 7 to 8.
Okay. Are you in any paid position right now?
I am the shipping clerk for the sign shop. So
we did talk about that. How long have you been doing that?
3 years.
And what did you do prior to that?
So I worked outside in the sign shop prior. Then I left to do the garbage detail. They didn't have too many people doing that. So I was doing garbage detail and then I came back to the sign shop. Before that, I was a hallway worker. Before that, I was a card server. Before that, I was a tutor but they said that after so many years, you can't keep tutoring, I guess. So they let me go, but with a good work report. So I accepted it.
Mm-hmm. Okay. No, that's good. And you expressed a desire to get an MSW. What would you do with that?
Oh, well, I would like to help reach other kids. Obviously I needed guidance. I needed support. I needed someone to help me. My family, my grandparents, they did, I want to say the best they could under the circumstances. The age difference was tremendous. My grandfather was 84. So, I mean, trying to raise a child, and he was working a side job. So I knew that his time wasn't really there. My grandmother, I don't like to blame her. I like to blame the alcohol because when she was under the influence, she was a different person. So I don't want to put any blame on her for her lack of affection.
Yeah.
But as a social worker, I think I can reach inner city youth most importantly, because they're the ones who are struggling. And a lot of the guys that I see and hear, it's disappointing because you hear a lot of the stories. So I'll ask when I was a tutor, I'll ask them, so what do you see in a couple years from now? They're, oh, I'm going to push a Benz, I'm going to sell a brick, I'm going to do this and that. And I'm like, this, you have no life expectancy. What do you think you're going to get from this? So it's sad to hear that they're using the music, these TV shows, movies, and that they glorify the wrong. And it's disappointing. And I tell them, listen, if these guys were actually living this lifestyle, they'd be in prison. These guys are entertainers. Nothing that they say or do is real. And you guys are eating this up like you have to live this lifestyle. It's ridiculous.
Well, I hope you will use your education to help others and give back to the community that you took from. We did receive support letters from your dad, your son, your sisters, your brother, your uncle, who was a deputy warden, fellow inmates, your girlfriend. Speaking of your girlfriend, she's in Florida.
Yes.
So your plan to move there eventually?
Eventually, yeah, because I know that most importantly, I have to be able to offer her something. So I feel like me transitioning back to society, I have to do something for myself first. Because one of the main reasons why I chose to want to go to a halfway house instead of a home with my family was because I didn't want to be a burden. And a halfway house offers me the best possible chance at at a constructive and a positive reentry.
And you think you're ready for that? Do you have any concerns, apprehensions?
My main concern would be I think reconnecting with my family. I think because I've been gone from their lives for so long. I have nieces and nephews now. My sisters and brothers, the ones that you talk about, my son was born while I was in prison. When my youngest sister was 5 when I left her. Johanna, she's one of my strongest advocates. She was only 10 and she's been around. The girlfriend that you speak of, we met in high school my freshman year, and she's been around my entire life, even through my entire 28 years of incarceration.
Do you get visits at prison?
Yes.
Who visits you?
It depends on different times. My son, video visits with my girlfriend, obviously. He just came up in a graduation in June. My sister Johanna and my son in June got to participate in my graduation, which was incredible in the sense that I finally got to be in a space where it was as an educational space and not a correctional space. And the officers actually were okay with leaving us inside the auditorium and just letting us be us and have a normal visit.
Okay. Now, you mentioned high-ranking gang members. Would there be any fallout as a result of your offense?
On my side, I would say no. I've been in prison 28 years and no one's ever confronted me, tried to attack me, anybody coming after me, none. I've been in multiple blocks across the prison over the last 28 years and no one's ever said anything to me. So I wouldn't think so.
All right, thank you for speaking with me. I'm going to turn it over to my colleagues so they can ask questions. Mr. Siselskas.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
So I read that during COVID, you were a teacher's assistant for Wesleyan.
Yes.
So were they restricted from coming into the facility due to COVID? Is that what was going on?
Yeah, so at the time when COVID struck the Department of Correction, they didn't know how to deal with it. So you had so many people coming down with COVID, everybody was sick, so they were clearing out blocks, guys were going to the hospital. It was madness in here. So the Department of Correction was trying to do the best they can to try to minimize infection, try to minimize it from spreading. They were bleaching walls, hallways constantly, trying to clean. So they were doing the best they could with the knowledge that they had. So at this time, they restricted any kind of volunteers from coming into the facility. So when they did that, one of the professors, Mr. Professor McCann, he asked me, he said, look, I can't come in. Would you be willing to assist me in being a teacher's aide? And I said, absolutely. I said, I have no problem with that. He said, you're going to have to come into the classes. There's a lot of guys there, there's a possibility that you might get sick because some guys might end up with COVID or anything like that. I said, it's fine because this is actually me trying to help give back to people that I know, people that I met in here. So I didn't have any problems in doing so.
So you were at his direction, under his guidance, teaching the classes during that time?
Yes. We would speak on a Zoom chat and we had a line set up for us and professors so we could talk to them on campus, which was approved by the DOC.
My colleague talked about some of the letters of support that you received. One of them that I read was from Deacon Jose Robles, the chaplain.
Yes, Deacon Robles.
Yeah, what's your relationship like and what's your experience been with him?
Oh, so Deacon Robles, he's my spiritual guide leader. He's my the person to make sure that I keep on track with my religious beliefs. So when I was young, my grandmother was very adamant about going to church. So I went to St. Michael's on Clark Street. I'd had my first communion, my confirmation. I was an altar boy. And I went to church quite frequently. My grandmother had prayer groups in the house. I came to prison, so I just reconnected with my Catholic faith. So he introduced me to the Legion of Mary, which is a prayer group where we pray to Mary, Bible study, and he's just been there ever since, trying to make sure that I stay on the right path.
Okay. And then I read one of your supports. My colleague also mentioned that your uncle, who was a deputy warden at one time, right?
My Uncle Will, yes.
You still talk to him now?
Yes. So my Uncle Will, I actually lived with him for a short time in Thailand. And he is very, how you say, by the book. He holds no punches. If you do wrong, he will let you know, but he's a supportive figure. He sees what's best for you and what's not best for you. And he is not scared in vocalizing what he sees is not fit for you. So he is very direct in that aspect. And I appreciate that.
So at some point when you're released, he's somebody that you think that you can call if you need extra support, have questions.
Absolutely. If nothing else, he'll be calling me because he's that kind of authoritative figure where he'll call, okay, so what are you doing today? Say, yeah, what you been up to? So how was work? He's very involved. So he's not one person who will sit back and just let you live. He's trying to involve himself as much as possible, especially if he thinks that you might be steering yourself in the wrong direction. And that's one of the best things about him.
Yeah, it's important to have people like that in your life that you can call, whether it's from your church or someone else, even in your family, that can kind of get you back on the right path. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Let's see if I have anything else in here. So between your opening statement and what you talked to my colleague about, sir, I think you've answered all of my questions. I'm going to pass it back over to my other colleague and see if they have anything else for you.
Okay.
Thank you. Ms. Montgomery?
Thank you. So, Mr. Sanchez, you've done quite a bit throughout this incarceration. Your schooling is certainly impressive. What else do you feel is important for you?
Oh, it broke up. Could you repeat that, please?
Yes, I can. So to be successful in the community, you've done a lot already while you've been incarcerated. What do you think you'll need to do in the community to give yourself the best opportunity for success?
Well, that was one of the reasons why I chose to go to a halfway house, because I feel that they would assist me with my best possibilities of having a successful reentry. So a halfway house offers social groups like hang time, so I can talk to other people about my traumas and the issues that I've overcome and things that I'm still struggling with. They offer groups such as Platform to Employment or the Reentry Welcome Center, which they take your skill sets and they pass that around to different people in hopes of them understanding your job skills. They also offer Goodwill, Good Path, which gives you field training. Emerge, they give you paid training in like construction, landscaping, OSHA, surf prep. There's so many different things that they offer. So I feel that that was my best opportunity.
All right. Well, it sounds like you are certainly well versed. I saw the letter from Holly Wazalewski where she outlined a number of programs that are available to you and other things that other resources in the community you might want to consider. Do you see, other than, reconnecting with your family, of any other difficulties that might be before you after being incarcerated for so long?
No, but I am open to talking to a therapist because although I think that I'm okay, there still might be some lingering traumas that might be there that I'm not aware of or I don't see in the moment. So I'm definitely open to going through that and looking forward to it.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. I have no other questions.
Thank you very much. Okay, so at this time, we'll turn the hearing over to the Office of Victim Services for input. Ms. Hamlet-Williams, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Madam Chair. I do have a statement from the sister of the victim, and it reads, "Good afternoon. I am the little sister to the victim, Jose Manuel Gonzalez. I am going to get straight to the point. I do not wish for Miguel Sanchez to get parole or anything else. He already won by getting 15 years off of his sentence. I don't understand why he needs more time taken off. How much more pain does his family need? We lost Jose. We lost our mom. Let us be in peace already. I don't feel like he is remorseful for what he did. Every time he has a hearing. All we see in the camera is smirking or smiling. He hasn't even said sorry. They say, due to him being young, his mind wasn't fully developed when he took my brother's life. But how can that be? He knew what he was doing when he went in his house, grabbed that gun, and shot him. He knew what he was doing when he ran to New York and changed his name while he was hiding, and he still knows what he did was wrong. He gets to speak to his son and family. My brother doesn't. I ask that you please see our hurt and our pain and stop letting these murderers off just because they say they have changed or they have taken classes and are bettering themselves, because that is not true. They are the same murderers they were before, just older. And yes, I can use men instead of murderer when speaking on him, but when I see him, that's all I see. I don't see a man, because a man will at least show his remorse and man up to what he did. So for the sake of the rest of my family, please do not allow this parole to go through. Let him do the rest of his time, since they already took 15 years off. Thank you.
Thank you.
This time, the attorneys will be afforded the opportunity to make a statement. We will turn it over to the state's attorney. Do you wish to proceed?
Yes, please. Thank you. Now, let me start by thanking the board's indulgence. My S juris number is.
I'm so sorry. Can I interrupt? I'm so sorry, panel.
Of course.
I just received a second statement from
Oh.
the father of the victim. I'd like to read.
Okay, thank you.
I'm so sorry. One moment. And please bear with me because it came through via text. Good day. I am the father of Jose Gonzalez. I am doing this statement to be read in court today to say my piece. Mr. Sanchez took my son from me in 1995, and I have not been the same. My son did not deserve to be taken from this earth by a person like Mr. Sanchez. We are not God to take other people's lives. Be he choose to that night people's life, My son did not deserve to be taken from this earth by a person like Mr. Sanchez. We are not God to take other people's lives. Be he chose to that night because he felt like a big man with a gun. I have not been able to even celebrate my birthday because my son was taken on my birthday. Can you even imagine how that feels? I was told they already took 15 years off of his sentence, and I believe that is good enough. My ex-wife, which is Jose's mom, died of a broken heart. She was never the same after he died. Only thing she could hold on to was she held him for the first time at birth. And because of the way Mr. Sanchez killed him, he held him at death as he took his last breath. Because of Mr. Sanchez, as a father, as a parent, please do not approve this parole. We beg of you. We just want the pain over. Nothing will bring my son back, but we can at least make sure the person responsible does the time he is supposed to. Thank you for listening. Thank you, panel.
Thank you.
Attorney Wolcott, you can proceed. Thank you.
Thank you. And for the record, my S juris number is 427393. I am Shermise Wolcott. I am the state's attorney for the Hartford Judicial District. And I thank the board for allowing me to be present and to speak at this hearing. My comments are very brief. I really do defer to the victims and the victim's family in situations such as this. But there are a few points that I would like for the board to consider. Whenever I come into these hearings, I always like to start with impact to the community. And in my role as state's attorney, that's what I'm looking at. How does this hearing, how does this, the potential for Mr. Sanchez affect the community? And right now, in 2020, early parts of 2025, I can honestly say that the Hartford community is advancing, but it's also struggling a bit. Through hard work on gun violence policies, law enforcement endeavors over the years of 2022, 2023, We're seeing gun violence come down. The community is a bit safer. It's okay for children to go outside and play. We don't have as much random gun violence. And that's always my focus, is to be sure that we're not sending a message that says gun violence is not important, that it's not a priority, that as the victim sister said, that it's not just an apology for actions and then individuals are let back out, right? There needs to be truth in sentencing. There needs to be truth in reform, and the community needs to know that. So with that, what I will say is that this board has a very has an interesting presentation before it. When I read through Mr. Sanchez's file, he had many good factors. I would not deny that, right? There is tremendous value in having a degree from Wesleyan. He has put in a lot of hard work. He talked about his faith, being a Catholic. Those are the things I think about when we look at the resentencing, just from his commutation, where his sentence went from 60 years down to 45 years. We have no special parole on the end of this sentence. We have no probation on the end of this sentence. Mr. Sanchez, when he completes his sentence, he discharges into the community. It's wonderful that he's electing a halfway house because there is no safety net there. So, my questions are always, well, what is the plan when the storm comes? Because as a Catholic, Bible says you will go through storms, right? What are your plans to address them? In response to Member Sazakis's questions, I believe you said that you have your uncle, you have your church, and you're going to engage in therapy. I hope you mean that and you genuinely plan on following through with that, because there does need to be some sort of safety net. But I recognize that the board has limited options when we're talking about crimes committed in 1995 because of the way the statute was written. So with that, at this point, Mr. Sanchez has served approximately 28 years. He has obtained two degrees. He does have a excellent level of achievement. He has a reentry plan, and he does have from Ms. Wazalewski a series of things that he can do to help his reentry. The reentry centers in Connecticut are robust, and they are significant resources in the community. And I hope that he takes advantage of them. I think 28 years is a bit shy of where I would like to see consistent penalties on the crime of murder. But I do believe that what Mr. Sanchez has submitted to the board is certainly a remarkable package overall. So thank you for the time.
Thank you, Attorney Walcott.
We will now turn it over to the public defender. Do you wish to proceed?
Yes, thank you very much. And thank you, members of the board, for giving me the opportunity to make a statement in support of Mr. Sanchez's application to be released to the community on parole. I'll be brief, but I just wanted to highlight, just for the board members, the special considerations that 54-125A subsection F4 asks that the board consider when determining whether or not to allow Mr. Sanchez to be released on parole. And those specifically are the reasonable probability that Mr. Sanchez will live and remain at liberty without violating the law, whether the benefits to Mr. Sanchez and to society that would result from his release to community supervision substantially outweigh the benefits to Mr. Sanchez and society if he were to continue his incarceration, and then whether Mr. Sanchez has demonstrated substantial rehabilitation since the date of his crime, considering a number of factors. And just briefly kind of tracking through each of these, I think that Mr. Sanchez's track record throughout his incarceration certainly establishes that there is a reasonable probability that the offense that he committed in 1995 is the last one he'll ever commit. He's had over 10 years since his last ticket. He's consistently engaged in programming, since the early 2000s, and he's earned accolades for his participation in programs and in education. He's become a trusted and appreciated worker in every job that he's held within the Department of Correction. And he has a realistic reentry plan that contains guardrails and does not place himself far away from family support, when he's initially released. So I do respectfully submit that if the board were to allow him to be released on parole, he won't be coming back. With regard to that second factor, the benefits to Mr. Sanchez and society, I would submit that the benefits, if he were to be released, substantially outweigh those otherwise. I think, again, another thing that I think has come across, I think in Mr. Sanchez's answers today and in his track record throughout his programming and his education and his work in the honor program is when Mr. Sanchez is given an opportunity to kind of, spread his wings in a community, he makes that community better. He's served to improve areas of the honor program. He's worked on bettering the education of his peers. And, he's earned the trust and the responsibility at each of his work programs to allow for, good work to continue kind of at the Department of Correction in those work, in those jobs. And then finally, in terms of whether he's demonstrated substantial rehabilitation, I can say just running through a few different factors. Obviously, his correctional record, I think in terms of his disciplinary record, speaks for itself. In terms of the age of the circumstances of who he was at the time of the offense, he was 17 at the time of the offense. He was 19 at the time of his trial. And since then, he has routinely performed as someone who we would expect as he matures, as his brain fully develops. He's grown to thrive and excel in the programs and the education that has been offered to him throughout his incarceration. He's, I think, amply demonstrated his remorse and, what he's learned from, his experiences from the early 1990s until today. And he has done everything that he can to contribute to the welfare of others through service during his incarceration, helping peers get their GED, helping them to work with adult basic English, and, helping with English as a second language. And I think he's offered, to provide lasting impacts to places such as the honor program, even if he is, to be released in the form of the handbook that he co-wrote. So, I think I'll rest with the rest of our submission, but I think, again, thank the board for considering Mr. Sanchez's application. And again, I appreciate the opportunity to make a statement.
Thank you, Attorney Ryan. Okay, so at this point, we're going to deliberate Mr. Sanchez, and we'll come back to you with our decision. I do want to thank the Office of Victim Services and the victims' family members who came forward. A horrible, tragic loss, and they will certainly suffer forever from this loss. So we appreciate their bravery in submitting a statement to us. Okay, so looking at the suitability criteria that's set forth in Public Act 1584, it does appear that Mr. Sanchez does meet all of those criteria. Certainly, he's not the same person that he was at 17 years old when he committed this crime. I believe there is a reasonable probability that he would live and remain at liberty without violating the law. He would certainly have years of parole supervision, and of course, someone on a flat sentence, we would want to have that type of support and supervision for some time. I believe that he can take the knowledge and education that he's gained throughout this incarceration and do good in the community. And he has laid out his plan to do so for us. He's demonstrated a substantial amount of rehabilitation through programming, education, the service. He's giving back, tutoring other students, and helping to develop this honor unit where there's a community of people who want to do better. His behavior, we haven't seen a disciplinary report in over 10 years, and he explained that because he wanted to be a leader and give back, he had to hold himself to a higher standard and not get the stupid little tickets that that he was getting prior to then. So now we see that there are none. He has a release plan that does include positive supports. However, he's been out of the community for 28 years, so he wants to go to a halfway house to transition so that he's not a burden to the supports in his life, but he does have them to fall back on. I think he's overcome the challenges that he faced as a youth and the family situation that he was in. He did not have a substance abuse or mental health issue to tackle. So in that regard, he was fortunate. But I think he's taken advantage of every opportunity that he could. And I don't see a benefit to further incarceration. I think he's appropriate under this public act for release at this time. So my vote would be to grant parole today. Mr. Sadowskis.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I agree with all the things you said. He has taken virtually every program that's available to him. And in addition to that, has gone on to lead programs, mentor other people in very difficult conditions during COVID, was assisting in teaching classes when he was himself not completed with his education. So all of those things are really good. He was able to articulate his plan for the future and is wanting to continue his education and be a social worker to help other people that have gone through similar situations, particularly children. And he has a very good support system in place with his family and others. And he's involved with a reintegration unit and has outlined some programs he'd like to take in the community. And I also think it'd be a benefit for him to be in a halfway house with the structure of parole, having him been incarcerated for such a long period of time. So I also find him suitable today, and will vote to support his parole.
Thank you.
I would agree with all that's already been said. He certainly meets the criteria for 1584 suitability for parole. I also, I think it's interesting that Mr. Sanchez, throughout his term of incarceration, up until maybe the last 10 years, he certainly has taken the hard road to learn. His involvement with the gangs and the lessons learned from that, I think are invaluable in many ways that he can take to the community and continue to give back and atone. I do get the sense that he's very remorseful and does appreciate the harm that he's caused to the victim's family.
Okay, thank
So
you.
I would also be.
Thank you. Yeah. Okay, so we have a halfway house and I have two family members of the victim. Any further?
Mental health evaluation treatment.
One.
Well, it's always, I think, a concern in the big picture.
Yeah.
That he's been incarcerated since he was 17 years old. He will have his family, but I do believe
I think it's his plan to, participate in therapy anyway. He mentions that in his, but do we want to make it a condition of his release?
It's an evaluation, gives him a stepping stone into where to go initially.
All right.
He'll need to secure services.
Okay. Mr. Sadowskis, anything further?
There's nothing else for me.
Okay, in the matter of Miguel Sanchez, inmate number 238008, I'll move to grant parole effective June 8, 2025, with the following additional conditions: to parole to a halfway house, to participate in a mental health evaluation and treatment if it's deemed necessary, and you're to have no contact with the family members of the victim. Initials. Oh, I have three. I think I have three.
No, I think it's the first one's hyphenated, I believe.
Is it? MB, it's not YG and EG? Help me out here.
I have YG, MB, and EG.
Yes. Okay. Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Do you have any questions, Mr. Sanchez?
No, I do not. Thank you for.
Okay, thank you to everyone for your participation, and please continue to do the work and give back. Okay, wish you the best.
Thank you.
This concludes the 1584 hearing of Miguel Sanchez, entry date 008. It is 11:46 a.m. It also concludes the 1584 hearing for Cheshire and Brooklyn.